Welcome in, y'all. We have another week of NFL picks. We're just over halfway through the season now. Still doing really good against the spread in the top 1%. I've had 2 losing weeks out of the 9 weeks so far against the spread. And unfortunately, one of those was last week. It was a brutal, brutal week. I didn't feel good about it going into the week. Ended up 4-10, by far the worst week. But on the flip side, I feel pretty good about this week. And the weeks I felt good going into it, I usually do fairly well. So I like that. I like the game so far, and I'm very excited to pick some of these. We're getting some better games, and let's just jump right into it here. We have Vegas at Denver on Thursday Night Football. Broncos are favored by 9.5 in this one. That line's jumping around a little bit, but it's resting right around that mark. And, this is one of those Thursday games where it's pretty cut and dry, it seems like. It seems like Denver should just kind of control this game from the get-go. They should be winning the whole time. And, personally, they should win by more than, 9-10 points. Crazy stuff happens on Thursday nights a lot. But just the Raiders haven't shown enough for me at all. They've looked very, very poor this season. Denver's offense needs to get going. I haven't liked what I've seen from a lot of their games this year. I think it's holding them back. If I could really see the offense step up, I'd think a lot more highly of them. But their defense is going to shut down the Raiders in this one. They're just too good. The skill gap here is very, very large. I don't think this one is super close. I think the Broncos win. I think they cover. I have this one 28-9. I don't think the Raiders can put up that many points. And I think the Denver offense should be able to get going against the Raiders. But not 30, 40 points, but I think Denver wins pretty easily, and that would move them to 8-2, remaining at first place in the AFC West and tied for first in the AFC. So, great season so far for Denver. They keep finding ways to win games. I think they get this one done on Thursday. But then we're going to turn our attention to Sunday, the second to last international game. This one's being played in Germany. It's going to be a bit chilly there, it's going to be in the 40s, some overcast, and Indy is favored by 5.5 in this one. And I kid you not, just minutes before I started making this, I did hear about the Sauce Gardner acquisition for the Colts. So that's very exciting for them. They gave up 2 first-round picks, which is a lot. That it seems like a lot. But you know what? We're only worried about this season right now, and it's going to help them right now. So good on them. They're really going all in this year. And, this is a great spot to get to 8-2. And playing overseas here, Atlanta, we were going back and forth for a while. Who is this team? And I think we've settled in on a below average team. I think Indy wins this one, and I think they cover 2. I'm going to have Indy covering here, but this is one, I think Indy could blow them out, right? Indy has that, they've been doing it all season long against lower level teams. I think they absolutely could. But Atlanta is good enough to make this a game. This is an Atlanta team that's beaten the Bills. This Atlanta team isn't a pushover, and even with the Gardner acquisition, which I think people always overreact to some trades, but they're not a pushover. I do think Indy wins. I think they cover, but, look out. We'll see. We'll see there. Then we'll move on over to the Sunday afternoon slate. We got the Jaguars visiting the Texans. And this is a big one for both teams, really. Houston is favored by 1, but Jacksonville's sitting at 5-3. They're having a good year. That's a good record, and they're making a playoff push. Right now, statistics are saying they're like one of the last teams out. Like they're maybe getting that 8 spot and they're falling just short of the playoffs. It's games like this that might determine whether or not they get in. Because Houston's good, but not good enough that you can just chalk it up as a loss. They need to go in there. They need to win. Houston, they're holding on. They're holding on to a thread, trying to make the playoffs or trying to make a playoff push, trying to get back to at least 500 here. They're 3-5. They're at home. They had a rough one. It was a close game against Denver. That was a fun one. This defense is just so good. And I know Jacksonville won the last time these two teams met, but it was close. It was a close game. And I'm actually going to go with Houston this time. I think Houston can get it done at home. Jacksonville's a good team. Houston's also a good team. I think these two teams are very, very similar. Very So like when I think about, in your head, I feel like you just have like automatic tiers of like how you feel about teams, and these two come in almost in the exact same spot for me. So I think it's kind of a toss-up game. I like the home team here, though. I like Houston to get it done. They're a bit more desperate too. 3-5, they have to get it done. Being more desperate doesn't necessarily mean you play better, but sometimes it can. So Texans get it done at home there. Then we move on to Buffalo at Miami. At the time of this, Waddle still remains on the Dolphins at the time of making this. I know there was talks about him maybe being traded, so we'll see. But right now he does remain on Miami. This is a 9.5 point spread in favor of the Buffalo Bills. And, at first glance, I was all over the Bills. I was like, this could be a blowout. But then I think about it, and, they played earlier this season, and this was a close game into the fourth quarter. Buffalo actually ended up winning by 10. I think the game was closer than 10 points, though, in my opinion. Miami has played a lot of games close this year with some decent teams. And, they got the blowout win in Atlanta a couple weeks ago. And last week against Baltimore, they played better than the score showed, I think. They were moving the ball really well in the first half and early second. They just couldn't convert fourth downs. And there's going to be games where you do convert those. So 9.5 is a lot. And especially, after such a beatdown Thursday night, you get the extra rest. Miami just seems to keep kind of chugging along, keeping games close, especially at home here. It's going to be warm. It's going to be humid. I think it's in the low 80s. I'm going to take the Dolphins to cover. I think Buffalo wins this game. I'm not saying like for sure, because Buffalo has played some not great teams this year, oddly close. Buffalo is way better than Miami, just making that clear, but I think the Dolphins might be able to keep this thing within the 9.5. So I'll take them to cover, Buffalo to win. And when you have stuff like this, Buffalo can end up winning by 20-something. So we'll see. Moving on then, we have the Patriots visiting Tampa Bay. Man, I've been looking forward to this one. You have two teams that aren't like known as powerhouses or coming into the year. Not everyone's crazy about them, but look at these records, man. 7-2, 6-2. This is a big game. It's unfortunate it's at that 1 o'clock Eastern slot, but this is going to be a lot of fun. Tampa Bay's coming off a bye. I did go back and look at how they've been doing coming off byes. Last year they got a big win, but it was against the Giants, and the last few before that, really, they lost with Todd Bowles coming out of the bye. So I don't think it's anything significant other than, maybe getting a couple guys back from injury. New England, they've been beating a lot of weaker teams. They have the Buffalo win, but they have been beating a lot of weaker teams. They've been looking good doing it, but it is some weaker teams. So this would be a big one for them to go in there and be able to get it done. I went back and forth on this one and who I thought was going to win. And ultimately, I'm going to go with the Patriots here. I'm going to go with the Patriots to win and cover on the road. Just because, they've been playing so well, man. They've been playing very well. I think this would be a nice statement win to go in there and get it done. The Bucs are just so banged up, which is what I worry about with them. So I think New England can go in there and get it done. But I think this game goes either way. It's a toss-up game. Should be a lot of fun. I will definitely be tuned in to that one. Next up, though, let's head on over to the Windy City. You're going to get the Giants and the Bears facing off. The Bears are 5-3. They're 5-3. They had an 0-2 start. They looked rough. And they've won 5 of the last 6 since then. They did lose last week, not this most recent week. They got the win against all odds at the last second against Cincinnati, but the week before losing to Baltimore. The Giants, since Jackson Dart has taken over, this team has looked pretty good. They have a couple big wins. They almost had a huge win against the Broncos, so they were very close to beating 3 very good teams. So you can't overlook this Giants team, and I think they're coming off a rough week here. That home loss against the Niners there, and Chicago's coming off a big win, a lot of points. I think you might be turning your attention to the Bears, thinking they maybe roll in this one, and I'm going to say not so fast. I am going to take the Giants to keep this thing close. I'm going to take the Bears to win it, but just by a field goal here. I think you got to look out here. I think the Giants could go in there and win this game. These are the games. I say this about, teams that aren't doing great, that are always or maybe aren't as great as some other teams who are making playoff pushes, like the Bears. These are the type of games you can't lose. You're at home against a 2-7 team. You can't lose. So I hope they come in there. You almost got to play desperate football because you can't be dropping games like this, especially with how tough their schedule is. I think they can get it done when push comes to shove. But the Giants are scary in this spot. The Giants are a team that I wouldn't want to play this year. They're like a no-win situation, If you beat them by a few scores, it's like, all right, well, they only have 2 wins. But they are absolutely capable of coming in and beating you, as they've proven. They've beaten the Chargers, the Eagles, and basically should have beaten the Broncos. So don't overlook this team. Bears the win, Giants cover. Look out, Giants could upset them there. We're going to move on next to Minnesota. Baltimore visiting the Vikings. And this is one the line has steadily climbed up. Baltimore was favored by 3. They're now favored by 4.5. So I don't love that from Minnesota, to be honest. But the Vikings are coming off a huge win on the road in Detroit. That was season saving, maybe. If you lose that one, you drop to 3-5. You still got a lot of NFC North opponents to play. I think it would have been pretty tough to climb out of that hole. Here at 4-4, you still got some work to do, but you're definitely in that playoff conversation if you can string together a few more wins. And this would be one of those big ones. They're at home. McCarthy was better last week than he'd been in the first couple weeks, but he still wasn't great. But he was better. He was definitely better. This Vikings team, man, they have a lot of talent. I say this, I think it's every video it comes up that I talk about them, how they're so talented. I love the roster. I love the head coach. And I think they can put up a fight against anyone. And Baltimore, they're elite, right? They're a great team when healthy. They got Lamar back. They went and stomped the Dolphins, at least on the scoreboard. So Baltimore could absolutely come into Minnesota here, win by 2 or 3 scores, and, head back to Baltimore with an easy win. But I think this one stays close. I think it stays close. I'm going to take Ravens to win because I think when push comes to shove, when it comes down to it, I trust the Ravens more versus, McCarthy in a tight game. But I'm going to take the Vikings to cover, though. I think it stays within that realm, whether it's a late cover or whether it's the Ravens, get a last-minute touchdown or field goal to win it. I don't know. But I think this is going to be a good game. I just think 4.5 is too much there. I think the Vikings absolutely have the ability to keep this thing close, keep it interesting. The Ravens, even when, mostly healthy, they've been injured for basically the whole year, but they've shown weakness at a lot of times against a lot of different teams. So I'm not just ready to say the Ravens are back to just dominating, weaker opponents. So we'll see in this one, but I think it should be a really good game, sneaky good game even. Moving on now to Carolina, where the Panthers are coming off a very big win against the Packers on the road. That was huge, and now they're sitting at 5-4. And I'm just going to keep saying the same thing I said for, I've said it for Chicago, a little bit for Jacksonville. This is a game for Carolina you can't lose. You can't have that win, then come back home with a winning record and lose to the Saints, because that's what below average teams do. The Panthers are trying to set themselves up as being taken seriously and, make a real playoff push. And it starts with games like these. They need to come home. They need to dominate a bad Saints team. The Saints team is bad. Panthers have shown the ability to do that, especially at home. I think this is one to be careful with because I think everyone loves Carolina in this one. But also for good reason. They are more talented than the Saints, and they're at home. They've been playing well. Spirits are high. I have Carolina winning. I have them covering. Maybe I'm putting too much faith in the Panthers, but the Panthers at home here, they play good at home, first off, and they got something going there. They keep finding some ways to win, and in some occasions, like against the Falcons, they've looked dominant at times. They've also looked really, really bad at times. So, they could flip a switch and go back. We'll see. But against the bad Saints team at home, I trust the Panthers, oddly enough. Don't think I usually ever say that. Then moving on to two really bad teams. I mean, I'm sure everyone's got their calendars marked for this one. It's the Browns at the Jets. The race to 2 wins here in Week 10. Jets 1.5 point favorites. They just traded away Sauce Gardner for 2 first-round picks. So honestly, kind of like that trade for them. I like picking up 2 first-rounders there, because the Jets aren't anywhere close to competing. You got to build for the future. So I don't hate that. But about the game itself here, the Browns have like 0 offense at all. Their defense is really, really good, but no offense. The Jets coming off bye week, I believe, after a win in Cincinnati a couple weeks ago, their first win of the season. They're looking to make it 2 in a row. I think Justin Fields and the Jets have the ability to get this thing done. I really don't know how this game plays out. It's really weird when you get 2 bad teams playing each other. A lot of time, it's what's going on in those locker rooms. Who's more motivated? Who's completely lost hope and spirit? I'm going to go with the Jets in this one to win and cover. I have them winning by a touchdown. But like I said, when 2 bad teams play, sometimes it can get weird. And it's sometimes hard to predict as well. But I just think the Jets have played a little better, cohesively than the Browns have this year. The Browns defense has shown up pretty big in some games, and that's how they have their win. But the offense has looked so weak, and there's been a couple times the defense got shredded, albeit by good teams, but still. So I'm just going to roll with the Jets at home in this one. But then we move on to our late games. We got Seattle, we got Arizona. Seattle favored by 6.5, and man, do the Hawks look good. They looked great on Sunday Night Football against the Commanders. They walked in there and they just absolutely had their way with them. That was a big win in prime time. And, 6-2 tied for first in the NFC West. And, they're looking to really be serious here. I mean, they got a real chance to win the division, maybe even get a bye, maybe a bit too early to be talking about that, but you never know. It started, and I'm going to say it, it's just a repeat phrase. You can maybe have this for every game I'm finding a team, but Seattle cannot lose this game. You cannot be coming off high hopes like that, and you cannot come home against an Arizona team and lose. This is a divisional game, a game that was played earlier this season in Arizona on a Thursday night. Seattle kind of dominated that game. Arizona ended up making it really close at the end. Arizona really had a chance to push it to overtime there, but Seattle ended up holding on. Arizona is just an interesting one, though. I think they're flying under the radar a little bit. Kyler Murray's been out. While he's been out, they lost a very, very close game against the Colts, where they were ahead for a lot of the game. They lost a very, very close game against the Packers, where they were ahead for most of the game. And then they go in and look very good on the road against the Cowboys and get a win. So, this Cardinals team isn't a pushover. I think Seattle is certainly better, and Seattle should handle this. As we saw earlier this season, Seattle just played better than them. But I'm actually going to take Arizona to cover this one. Arizona has not lost the game. They have 5 losses. All 5 losses, a lot of them to very good teams, have been within a score. So whether they win or whether they lose, they seem to be able to keep it close. And I assume it'll be Murray at quarterback, but Brissett has looked very, very good. So, we'll see there. I really trust Seattle to get it done, though, get the win. It'd be a little surprising to see Arizona get in there and actually come out with a win, but I think they're able to cover the spread, whether it's with a late touchdown or just, playing close games like they have been. So Arizona to keep it close there, Seattle to win. Then our next game, Detroit visiting Washington. Man, at the start of the year, this one looked so fun. And now Jaden Daniels is out. The Commanders are a mess. And it's got blowout written all over it. I don't even think this is going to be Fox's main afternoon game anymore. It was planned to be kind of the whole time, but I would assume they've shifted over to Rams-Niners, which is a much better matchup. This is one. Detroit's favored by 8.5, and I feel like everyone and their mother is probably going to be on Detroit to win and cover, which I don't like because that's the way I lean a little bit. But, this Washington team, with or without Daniels, they just haven't looked great. And especially without him the last few weeks, they've gotten blown out, haven't looked good. The defense hasn't looked good. I mean, Seattle just did anything they wanted against this Washington team. Detroit coming off a tough home loss. That was rough. You hate to see that. But Detroit's record coming off a loss under Campbell is exceptional. So I think they rebound good. They remember that playoff game from last year. They come into Washington. They get a big win. They win big. 35-20 is what I have it written down as. In blowout games, it's hard to say exactly what the score is going to be, what garbage time points happen and whatnot. But I don't think this one stays close. I don't think Washington has it in them. And I think their spirits are crushed too. So tough season for Washington. Then we move on to what is the best game of the late afternoon slate, the 4:25 Eastern, and it's the Rams and the Niners. Two teams in the NFC West. They met earlier this season on that Thursday night game, and what a game it was. An upset win for the Niners. What a chaotic game. Rams had a couple fumbles and, missed extra points and fourth down. It was a mess. And they get them run it back here. Rams are favored by a full 3.5 on the road in San Francisco. This is a Niners team that's very beat up. I believe even more so defensively than they were when they met earlier this year, and the Rams actually moved the ball very well against them. San Fran moved the ball pretty well against the Rams, especially in the first half of the game when they met the last time on Thursday night. But this time around, I mean, the Rams, I think they're just the better team right now than San Fran. I mean, San Fran's super well coached. You got Shanahan, you got Robert Saleh. I mean, they're very well coached. And when you have a well-coached team, you can win a lot of games. And Purdy might be coming back for this one, so definitely keep an eye on that. But they're so banged up. And this roster was weaker than it's been in the past coming into the season anyways. And the Rams, they want revenge for how that game went. I just think it's too much. I think the Rams go into San Fran. I think they get the win. I think they cover. I have them winning by 11 points here, 31-20. The biggest thing I worry about is, the Kyle Shanahan versus Sean McVay matchup, because McVay just oftentimes can't seem to figure it out against him. I will say, though, the Rams are moving the ball well last time they played, and, the Rams actually won both times these teams met last year, so he's been doing better. But I do still worry about that because McVay just sometimes just can't seem to figure him out. So we'll see what happens here. But I am going to roll with the Rams' big win on the road against their division rival. Then we move on to Sunday Night Football. Steelers visiting the Chargers. Chargers, I was going to say escaped, but, they were ahead for, most of the second half against the Titans. And the Steelers, what a win that was. That was a huge win to boost their odds of winning the division. They needed that one. They got the home win against the Colts. They forced 6 turnovers, which is super awesome. That's awesome. But I don't love it when you have to rely on that to win games. Their 2 biggest wins against Indy and New England, 2 great wins. But they forced 5 turnovers and 6 turnovers in those 2 games, which is awesome, right? If you can keep forcing turnovers. But I just can't count on that. This Steelers team isn't that great. They're fine. They're like exactly what the Steelers have been, it feels like, for a few years. I mean, they're kind of in a different way, different parts of the team. But I just as far as like when you put the sum of all the parts is they're fine, a little above average, and they're going on the road to play a Chargers team that's very good, a Chargers team that's beat up, but a Chargers team that is very good. They're home. They know how to win football games. They've been playing very well the last few weeks. And I think the Chargers win. I think they cover. I think the Chargers make this one look a little easy. This is one of my bolder picks for the week, having this be such a large spread between the 2 scores I'm predicting here, 30-17. But I don't think the Steelers are good enough to keep up with the Chargers in the spot. If the Steelers win, they win the turnover battle. There's no doubt. They will not win this game without winning the turnover battle. So we'll see if they can do it. We'll see. Then Monday Night Football, this one's awesome. This is awesome. Tell me this just doesn't just scream November night game, Monday Night Football. I mean, you got the Eagles, you got the Packers. Lambeau Field, Monday Night Football. No, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. Should be chilly there. It's going to be a lot of fun between these two teams. Green Bay coming off a tough home loss, man. Head-scratching losses for this Packers team. Their two losses are to the Browns and the Panthers. Panthers, 5-3, I understand, but, they were almost 2 touchdown favorites. Philadelphia coming off a bye week, so they're well and rested here coming into this one. And this one's going to be a blast. I'm super excited for this one. Two NFC heavyweights going at it, and this could be an NFC Championship preview for all we know. There's certainly, two of the highest likely teams to come out of the NFC. There's a couple others in there, Lions and Rams, but this very well could be an NFC Championship preview. And the Packers are favored by 2.5 in this one, and I think it's one where obviously it's going to be very close, right? These are two good, fairly evenly matched teams, I would argue. But this, I think the Packers have the ability to take this thing at home. I think people are going to put too much weight on that Carolina loss last week, which is fair. I don't blame you. They looked horrible on the offensive side of the ball. But this team is good enough that they can get this done. And let's not forget, Philly has looked pretty shaky at a lot of points this year too. So I have the Packers winning this one 24-20 and covering at home on Monday Night Football. So it should be a really fun one. I'm excited for this one. I hope y'all are too. I'm excited for this week. There's a lot of good games that I'm excited to watch this week. It's going to be a great week of football. And, I'd love to hear y'all's picks. Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? And, let's hope we get as many right as we can. And a reminder that the best bets, best picks video will be coming out on Friday. I actually have a pretty good feel this week, so I think it's going to be a good one. So definitely look forward to that.